Hi everyone, thanks for being with me, and thanks for those people who have subscribed to my channel, who have rung the bell, who have put in comments down below. I really do appreciate it, so please continue to subscribe. And today I'm going to revisit a subject that I talked about a couple of days ago, which is in relation to the disaster that occurred at the White House with the South African president. And I'm going to revisit this because it has come to my attention that Sky News, my favourite network. Now, I just need to say After Dark in particular, because during the day they're not too bad. Not too bad. They don't always get the news right, but they are a little bit more balanced, I should say. So, but After Dark, they're just a group of crazy people who insist on mouthing right-wing propaganda so that their limited number of members can be entranced. So I don't know if that's such a word, but so that they can influence, I guess, the small number of people that tend to watch Sky News. But they are a good representation of actually what happens on the right of politics here in Australia. So I'm going to play a couple of clips for you. One of them is just this introduction of the notion that that what happened in the White House with the South African president was a good thing. And then I'm going to look at Rowan Dean's response to this, because it encapsulates what a combination of a fart and a human excrement would be like, because that is the definition, I think, of Rowan Dean. And the fact that he has a gig at all and that he is able to espouse propaganda in the way that he does without being fact-checked is amazing, just blows me away. So I'm going to play a little bit of a couple of clips actually from him. But firstly, this one, which is having a look at the story anyway, as it's breaking in relation to what happened in the White House.
Scenes at the White House today. Donald Trump invited South African President Cyril Ramaphosa.
The guy here, incidentally, is a right-wing commentator in the US that he sits there around Steve Bannon, sort of in the same category.
To the White House and showed him a video of alleged violence against white South Africans. And this, of course, comes after the United States accepted around 50 white South African refugees. Now, the media is calling this an ambush. We know that Donald Trump is not a standard politician. A lot of people criticise the way he handles diplomacy. But what do you make of what unfolded today?
Well, this is exactly why people like Donald Trump, or at least half the country does, and it's for demonstrations exactly like this. He is going to surprise you in every way, shape, or form, whether you like it or not. And he is the ultimate disruptor. He challenges the status quo, and you know what? He gets leaders thinking. He gets them off their feet, and he surprises them. And this threat to South Africa, he has cut off all supply and all aid to them at the moment. The Cyril Ramaphosa came cap in hand asking for more support, and he was trying to go in this back and forth with some technological support and surveillance and preventing criminality in the country and stuff like that. And Donald Trump likes to have these conversations in front of the camera. It's part of his transparent drive. And
yeah, primarily because Donald Trump is a jerk. And I guess my point that I wanted to raise here is that countries or presidents of countries or leaders of countries will not turn up to have these discussions with Trump in the future. They will be cautious of the fact that they will be ambushed by this clown. And they will therefore back away from negotiating any deal with the United States simply because of Trump's behaviour. And they don't want to be caught out and embarrassed. And quite frankly, the South African president behaved really, really well. I often wonder at what point is one of these dudes going to get so upset with Trump when he tries these antics that he's just going to stand up and punch him in the face. You know, I'm waiting for that day, because at some point one of these guys, and I tell you what, if somebody does, they'll be kind of like an international hero, because they're simply doing what a lot of leaders of countries wished they had done. So hopefully one day he will stand up, someone will stand up and punch him in the face. Now, speaking of punching for people in the face, there's also this other dude whom I reckon I would like to punch in the face, and this is Rowan Dean, primarily because he... now, before we get into this, we need to accept that in South Africa, there's a lot of violence, a lot of criminality, a lot of people. It's the third-ranked violent country in the world, or something similar to that, and its violence can't be denied. So let's accept that. But the racial violence against white people is just not a thing, and that there's violence between blacks and white, and there's far more violence between towards blacks, from blacks to blacks, I guess, because there's so many more of them. The white people only comprise 7% of the population anyway. So, but that 7% own most of the land, I think. So let's not forget all of that. And let's not forget about apartheid, where the black people in South Africa were diminished, humiliated, and were treated poorly by the Dutch and the white government for decades. So let's accept all of that as well. But today, they're a violent country. Wouldn't travel there, wouldn't suggest anybody travel to South Africa because of its violence. But it is not engaged in a white genocide of farmers. There's been so many outlets that have decried that. You take 15, 20 minutes just to Google it all, you'll find that information quite readily available too. But people like Rowan Dean seem to think that they have the good oil around this. And in this particular clip, Rowan thinks that the rest of the world is watching him and noting the things that he says, because he talked about this some weeks before and is pretty excited by the fact that the US president has taken it up as well.
Last week on this show, I spoke about the terrifying plight of South Africa's white farmers. I showed you the packed stadiums of South African political figures chanting, "Kill the Boer" and "Kill the farmer," as others described how...
Those videos date back 4 or 5 years, I hasten to add. And all the crosses along the road was a demonstration at the time. It wasn't necessarily, and it wasn't a demonstration just about white farmers being killed. It was about farmers in general, and it was about the violence generally in South Africa. So again,
they wanted to kill white men, kill white women. I showed you the long avenue of crosses representing slain South African farmers, the majority of whom are white. And I described how, with only the rarest exceptions, much of the world's media refused to report on this appalling situation. But clearly...
Well, he should be feeling rather chaffed at the moment, because the world is reporting on this very situation. Not because you raised it, Rowan, but they're reporting on it primarily because Donald Trump raised it, and there's a general acceptance, apart from the right-wing media, that Donald Trump was wrong. And so the fact that you brought this up a week ago really means nothing, because it was Elon Musk who raised this issue some weeks before, I think, with Donald Trump, and has sown this seed in Trump's mind. There's not much happening in Trump's head anyway, so it doesn't take all that much to sow this sort of seed, which clearly he has done here.
Someone was paying attention 2 days ago in what is increasingly becoming the greatest show on earth. Donald Trump, obviously a fan of this show, used the Oval Office.
Donald Trump wouldn't know who you are, Rowan, and not many people care. But But, you want to get off on it, that's fine.
To not only give a national leader a deserved dressing down, but to put the story of the plight of South African farmers in spectacular fashion, front and centre, to the entire world.
Turn the lights down.
We won't bother going through all of that again because we know that it's crap. And here is just one other clip just on the same
The top of this show with in the White House this week. This was the confrontation with the South African president on that disgraceful treatment of persecuted white farmers. Natalie, we discussed this on this show last week, so I'm glad to see that Donald Trump's obviously a keen fan of the world, according to...
He's really pushing the point, isn't he, that, Donald Trump's just, watches Australian version of Fox News.
Rowan Dean, and I'm putting that down to you. Full credit to you. But what does the mainstream media have to say about this?
Well, I think mainstream America loves it. Mainstream media, not so much, though. I think they love to use the term genocide to describe almost anything. Apparently, if you put the word white in front of it, or you're talking about South Africans of a certain race, then suddenly it becomes, unacceptable to use that terminology. I mean, frankly, we saw as much go down in the press briefing room with a back and forth between a noted, shall we say, kind of COVID masker truther, Yamiche Alcindor from, I believe, PBS, and Caroline Levitt having a back and forth like that. But this is something, too, I think that speaks to the new media dynamic that they've sort of inserted in this White House, right? President Trump's presentation, though it was jarring certainly to the president of South Africa, this is also a story that the legacy media in the West, but certainly in the United States, has covered up for a very long time, has refused.
Right, they've covered it up. No, they haven't. It is just untrue. It is just untrue. And the distortion, the effort to distort the truth by Sky News is astounding. And I don't understand it. Perhaps you can explain it to me. Just remember to subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell for further notifications so that we can have, so that you can have more videos from yours truly. So, what do you think? Is it just the expanding of this conspiracy theory? What is the benefit for Trump by doing all of this? And will, at the end of the day, will most leaders say, bugger you, Trump, I'm not even going to bother to turn up because I don't want to be humiliated by you in the way that you do. He is a terrible, despicable human being. And anybody who turns up, including the Australian Prime Minister, who even thinks about having a meeting with Trump, should think again, because he will endeavour to humiliate you, because he's a despicable human excrement. So let me know what you think in the comment sections below. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.